Okay, here we are. Metaminds Podcast, episode 3.
We made it.
We made it.
3.
We're still here.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about this week, Dan?
An interesting one this week. We're talking about perception and how we construct reality from our perception.
Perception is reality. That was cute.
That was well done.
So, this is I'm not saying I'm the owner of this realization, but this is a realization that I had a few years ago where just the power of perception. What's that Aldous Huxley book? The Doors of Perception. That's an interesting read. If you haven't read that, stop listening to us and go and read that. No. It's a deep read, but it does talk about similar things to what we're talking about today. That your perception is so extremely powerful that it can it does shape your reality, doesn't it? And it's basically the key to unlocking the life that you want.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, and all you have to do is pay us $9.99 a month, and we'll give you the single key. No.
None of that.
So how do you use perception to shape your reality?
Great one. Well, I guess I noticed that societal pressures and I guess the assumption of how you as a person should go through life, whether that's just, going through school, doing this, getting a job, whatever it is, that is kind of just something that has been created, and you create your own reality, right? So that social norm or that perception that other people have got doesn't necessarily have to align with yours. So yeah, for me, it's kind of just, if I'm enjoying it, if I'm fulfilling myself, then that's fine to me. That's my reality, And I guess it's also trying not to be naive to the fact that I guess you may have this perception, but you've also got to be grounded within reality to some extent, or the societal norms, because we still live in a society. So I guess that's another thing that I had to be mindful of, because these pressures don't go away. It's just expected to take certain steps, or people will say things that are grounded within their belief system and their perception or whatever. So for me, as hard as it is, and it's still an everyday grind, I still talk to you about things, and then you'll kind of go, oh, well, dude, that's your perception, or that's their perception. You don't need to worry about it too much. So yeah, I guess it was just kind of realizing that I can create my own perception. Literally, I can make my life whatever I want it to be. And obviously, again, that's quite a privileged statement. There's still barriers, of course, and many factors that will stop you or slow you down or whatever. But yeah, just create the best reality you can, because
So you can just jump off a building and perceive that you'll fly, and you'll fly. Okay, This is what we're trying to touch on here. No. But I mean, when it comes down to it, it's almost that powerful. Obviously, not to the point where you can just grow wings and fly.
No.
But you can use it to literally shape everything in your life, and it's extremely powerful because, you shape your own perception of your life, and you can do whatever you want with it. I don't know, I'm just rambling here. I had a point there, but I kind of lost it.
That's good, that's fine. And we'll explore that in another podcast, I'm sure. So it is interesting, because it is something that I think you've even said, like, you've hit barriers before with certain things. And I'm definitely the same. I feel that quite regularly. This is something that I do have to manage I have to be on most of the time. Like, I have to actually say to myself, like, okay, well, that was why they said it, or, if someone confronts me about something, or whatever it may be, it's hard to think of an example on the spot, but I just need to remember that I'm grounded in my perception. They're maybe not grounded, or maybe I'm not grounded, but they're in their own world. And actually, like you said before, like, you may not be able to jump off a building and fly, but you can change your entire world based on your attitude and your perception. So I guess that's something, having people around you with similar thoughts, people who will, maybe challenge you, because being challenged is great, obviously. Like, you don't want to be so grounded and so, like, set in your ways that your opinion is everything as such. You still want to be open.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's another interesting thing, like being open to change, and being open to someone changing your mind, or information changing your mind. Because I think one thing that worried me a little bit, which I guess is just a perception thing, but I notice a lot of people who have gone through a long period of life, 50 plus years or even less. They've lived on this planet for a long time, and then they slowly get to the point where they just stop really caring as such, and they kind of lose sense of themselves, and they kind of just go on that grind just to live through life. One thing that worried me was getting to a point where I would be set in my ways. I always want to be open to being challenged as such, and as everyone will feel, your ego will flare up. Like if someone questions you, like your ego is going to flare up. It's natural. So yeah, I guess just being open to being challenged, and that's kind of off what we were talking about, but it's kind of related.
This is to do with perception, and I like what you said. That it's the best example is that older people are set in their ways as such. They're set in their perception, and they're okay with that perception. They're just living in that perception and not open to change, not open to different thoughts and different ideas. Essentially, like any kind of new age ideas. Oh, them weird little millennials. What are they doing? But this is the ego's job. Essentially, is to keep you in your comfort zone, you know what I mean? And the comfort zone is not where the magic happens. It happens outside of the magic. It happens outside of the comfort zone. And to get to that place, you have to be open, and you have to be willing for your perception to change, and you have to be willing to realize that you're not always right. Yeah, definitely. And again, this is the ego's job, is that like you'll have a thought, and then your ego just attaches to that thought and associates it with truth. And it must be true because it came from me, so that is real. And then you'll see information on the internet or through talking to people that backs that up. What's it called? Confirmation bias. Yeah. And then you'll become more grounded in that perception. And you have to really it takes a lot of self-awareness to take a step back from that and, be able to like address the fact that it's like, yes, I have this thought right now in this moment, but you have to be, and this comes back to what we were talking about in the first podcast, is just like being able to connect with people and just listen to actually what they have to say, because they have lived a whole totally different life to you. Definitely. Even if you've grown up in the exact same area, their perception has been shaped in totally different ways to yours. Not to mention people that actually live in other countries and grew up in other countries, such as yourself. Like they've just experienced such a wildly different perception to you that you can learn so much from them. And if you stay open to that, then you can actually shift your own perception and learn more and become more wise through that. But it's so easy for the ego to go, this is me and this is what I know and I'm right. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely. And I guess maybe this is a topic I think we wanted to talk about later, the whole ego management topic. But those all tie in with each other,
they do tie in, I guess. And just, the perception is reality. Like, I guess, because the ego may not have your values at hand. So for you to react in a certain way to someone confronting you, might not actually align with your values, but you're just kind of going with it because you've got that dying force to just go, oh, you've said something against me, you don't believe what I'm saying or whatever, so no, you're not right or whatever. So,
jumps into defense mode.
Yeah. And I guess we spoke about this on the last podcast, but just that whole idea of giving yourself time to breathe and like let your frontal cortex be present for reasoning and everything. Like, I think that, can be very important to try to diffuse situations, because obviously conflict is a part of everyday life. And that's something that most people will encounter regardless.
So what we're really getting at is like what you perceive to be true is actually true. So if you, I suppose we do have to kind of come up with examples, but if you perceive yourself to be just an average guy, and that perception could have been conditioned into you through the education system or your mother and father or just friends and family, that, oh, you're just an average guy. And you believe this perception of yourself. Again, like it ties in with ego and that kind of thing. And you've had this job for a while, and this is probably the job that you'll be in, and this is probably how your life might go. Then you're grounded in that perception, which again, this is like grounded, similar to old people, they're kind of stuck in their ways, and you can actually, you have the power to change that perception of yourself, but it takes, again, you have to take that step back, and you have to be self-aware to actually think about life in different ways. And again, this comes back to being open to actually to shifts by learning new things and growing. And like, I like to listen to particular podcasts that are actually against my values, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because, I'm stuck in my values, and not necessarily stuck. I believe these particular things, but that doesn't mean I'm absolutely correct. you know. And even though I could listen to a podcast and I go, I fundamentally disagree with what that person is saying. I think it's stupid, you know. But they have lived a totally different life. So I could actually learn a couple of things, or I could learn why I might actually be wrong.
That's it.
Even not on the whole thing, but just in a couple of things in my, you know, in my belief. But it's like, it's just interesting because people can perceive themselves to be stuck in this loop of life where it's boring and monotonous, similar to what we were talking about previously, and they're not going anywhere and everything's just fine. It's not fantastic, I guess. You know, how do you find people that are having an amazing life? I don't have an amazing life, but you do. You do have an amazing life. You just have to perceive the fact that you do have an amazing life.
That's it. Yeah.
To change your perception on that thing. And this is what we were talking about last time as well, gratitude. You know, you have to implement these little things like
definitely
having gratitude for your life, realizing that you're a conscious being, you get to experience this thing, and just slowly shift your perception on your life, and it can become this really fantastic thing that you never knew that you could experience. You know what I mean? Do you want to build on that at all?
Yeah. I guess just when I was going through a hard time and I was like trying to figure myself out or whatever it may be, I found myself really trying to take, it sounds a little silly, I guess I'm sure people can relate, but I would just try to appreciate the small things that were happening around me. So for example, when I was just, you know, sitting at university or whatever and I was looking around, I would try to fixate on the little things that were happening between the birds.
Like pretty girls.
The birds.
The birds.
And the bees and, you know, the trees and like actually trying to be present and enjoy that, so that I started to realize that my attitude can really, and my perception obviously, can change my reality. So if I start to appreciate these things that are trivial to people, if I start appreciating it for its beauty and the ecosystem that is created by the birds, you know, spreading the seeds, or, you know, whatever it may be, people going about their daily life, jumping on buses back and forth, people just crossing their paths. And I did notice that when I was in that mindset of trying to find little things that would make me feel better or make me feel like there was beauty in the world as such, I would see disconnection between people. I would see people just crossing each other in the street and not really being present. And interestingly enough, actually, this is a good point that you and I have kind of gone on, and we've spoken about this at length in the past, but trying to take every situation with excitement and passion. So even when we go and get a coffee, for example, even if the person is like, yeah, here's your coffee, we're always like, thanks for that, I hope you have a great day. Like, we always try to instill positivity and good vibes into any situation.
It's so infectious.
It is. It really is.
Similarly, when that person across the counter is having a horrible time, and look, it's not to blame them, they can be having a horrible time because of their circumstances and that day, or the job is trash or whatever.
Something at home,
that's also
whatever.
Infectious to other people.
Yes,
So
and you could have made their day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally, just by saying, thank you for that, have a great one.
Yeah.
May not mean too much for you, but
and
to them.
genuinely asking how their day is going.
Yeah.
People say that, but they don't really want an actual response. Be like, hey, dude, how are you? And people go, oh, like they're so surprised by like, oh, wow, this person actually, you know. And you're changing their perception on the world, where it's like not everyone is just this
not
trash
everyone.
zombie
That's
going
it,
through their life. You know what I mean?
That's it. Because we would be that diamond in the rough where it's like they would get maybe 20 customers that don't connect and just go, yeah, I'll just grab my flat white, just grab this. But us being genuinely like aware of the situation and trying to be positive and trying to encourage like optimism within them, like, yeah, that could make a big difference, like you said, on them. And definitely on us. Like, I find myself happier being like that. There's no need for me to go in and just go, yeah, I'll just grab my usual. Yeah. Like, actually going, thank you, this is what I'll grab today. You know, just being polite in every sort of interaction.
Even if that is totally like selfish, because you can actually go into that situation, do that really positive thing, and even if your intention isn't actually to bring up the other person, it actually brings up yourself anyway.
It does, yeah.
By just, you know, and that can come back to like just a bit of state change, you know, like listen to a sweet pump up song before you go into work. So you walk into work and you're like, hey guys, how's everyone going today?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's it.
So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about limiting beliefs, because this comes down to perception as well. And something that I've found a lot, especially recently, is that when I can't do something, or I think I'm not good enough for something, or something's impossible, more often than not, it's my ego implying a limiting belief onto myself. And it's like, it actually is possible. There's so many ways around it, but you've just put up this mental hurdle where you're like, oh, I probably can't do this because I'll get judged, or because it will be a lot of work, or, you know, I might fail. I might not get the actual thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
But really, like, I always refer to it as a hurdle for some reason, but it's like, once you realize that is a, what did I just say? Mental
block, barrier,
a mental
boundary,
barrier. Then you can jump over that hurdle. You can jump over that mental hurdle, but you first have to realize that it is a mental barrier, essentially, that your ego is actually putting up, and it's putting up for a good reason.
Yeah,
because it wants to keep you comfortable, you know.
Yeah,
keep you in that comfort zone. But again, this is a perception thing where you perceive something to be impossible, too hard to do, whatever.
Yeah,
but really, you just have to jump over that mental hurdle. But first, you have to realize that it is a mental hurdle, which is an extremely hard thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, did you have anything to say on that? Do you have any limiting beliefs that you broke through?
Yeah. I guess with limiting beliefs, I kind of spoke about it before, I guess, like just in the first podcast about going through high school and not really finding myself, not, you know, being happy or whatever. A limiting belief early on within my YouTube career was putting myself out there. You know, would people completely destroy me in the comments? Would people, you know, just rip me to shreds, kind of thing? And my limiting belief, I guess, was the fact that, you know, I got picked on for my accent. So would that not be the same when I put it out to the world? You know, what happens if people don't accept that I've got this accent like some other people didn't? Or, you know, would that slow me down? Would that stop me? Would someone say something? And obviously a lot of other things associated with putting yourself out on the internet. I faced a lot of those, questions within myself of like, is this something that I feel comfortable doing? Putting myself out there for potentially millions of people to see? Like, do I feel okay with that? But then the thing that trumped that was my perception, the fact that I had values. I really enjoyed filming. I enjoyed reviewing, because when I originally started, I reviewed apps. I did a one-take Wonder Mate with my webcam, with a phone, and I just talked to the camera. I didn't record anything or plan anything. And yeah, that was something that was like my first step getting out there. And I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed the response. I enjoyed the fact that people would ask me questions. And that just pushed me to better myself, because I thought, well, the only thing that's limiting me now is myself. I can see that my video quality isn't the best. I know that I can improve.
Still not the best.
Still not the best. I can still improve, and I still do need to improve, as we all do. Well, I don't think we should ever be satisfied 100% with what we're doing. There's always room for improvement.
Well, perfection doesn't exist. There's no
that's exactly right, yeah.
So art is never finished, it's only released, as they say.
and that's probably another limiting belief, perfectionism. People who want to be perfectionists. So, and I've seen this with people before, actually, where they say, I want to do a YouTube channel, I want to do this project, whatever it may be, but then they're so fixated on it being perfect and people to perceive it as this masterpiece that they won't release it until it's fully done. But it's a subjective thing. So if it's perfect to you, someone might not think it's perfect. You may have put all that time into making it perfect, and someone's still going to rip you to shreds. So you and I have spoken about this, but when I have a project that I'm happy with, I'm like, yep, I'm happy with that. I could maybe improve on it, but let's put it out into the world. Let's work on my next project. I try to move forward and improve that next one, and try to go into it with a clear mindset instead of being fixated on, well, that could have been better, that could have been better. That's, again, just a limiting belief. That's slowing me down from pursuing something more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Do you agree with that, or have
any
experiences to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've had a lot of limiting beliefs in my like business, especially. It's like, you know, I'm never going to make it, or like I don't have any clients right now, or any of these kinds of things. And again, they're just limiting beliefs. There's always ways around it. There's always, you know, ways that you can jump over those mental hurdles, and it's all to do with perception and shaping your own perception of your environment, or your mental attitude, or your physical experience. Yeah. So shifting gears a bit, I suppose some actionable words is like, there's a lot of people out there, and even myself, you know, we've both developed, but I'm sure we're still stuck in our mental perceptions, to actually take yourself to that next level, to actually change your perception on yourself from the average guy
Yep.
or the average gal who maybe is never going to make it. I suppose what are some actually actionable steps on how to change your perception of yourself and how to, become the person that you want to be? Would you have any?
Well, I think we touched on a lot of them. I think firstly, start with gratitude. Try to actually be grateful for what you're doing. Try not to like stomp out your dreams immediately or pull yourself down. Try to be grateful for, like you said, the place that you're in. Try to find some gold within that, some excitement within that. I guess trying to have time to actually do it on your own, like actually sitting with yourself and your thoughts and your feelings and just trying to, we've kind of gone through it. Like
even just writing down what your current beliefs are and what your current perceptions values are, and what you want that to
I like
look
that. What your current perception is as well. That's a good one.
What is my perception of myself?
And why is that?
Why is that as well? Because it's shaped by your environment and other people and things like that. And so what is my actual perception of myself, and what is the perception that I want of myself? You know, so if you are the average guy or gal or whatever you perceive that to be, whatever you perceive yourself to be, and you actually want to be X, whatever that may be, you want to be a YouTuber like DanceTube.tv, for example. But you've got all these limiting beliefs, and you're not sure how to actually get to that thing. I was listening to a very interesting podcast recently, and I have to actually find these and link them in the show notes because I'm never actually directly linking the actual person's name, but I'll try and find it. But essentially what he talks about, he's a motivational speaker, and he works in the psychology of motivation. And he says essentially every action you take is a vote for the person that you want to become.
Yes.
So when it comes down to it is action. And so when you want to be this YouTuber, but all of these limiting beliefs and you're stuck in your way of this person, you know what I mean? To actually change that perception on yourself. And so it's the same. I'll use the example of us being a podcaster. 3 weeks ago, we were not podcasters or the type of people that would run a podcast. However, we slowly took one action, which led to another action, which led to becoming the type of people that would run a podcast. And here we are running a podcast. So we've changed our perception on ourselves. So there's a real life kind of example of how relentless imperfect action definitely trumps perfect action 100% of the time. Because you can go through, by the time one person that's trying to take a perfect action finally takes that step, we've already taken 15 steps and realized all the other ways that are wrong, and this way is the way that to work for us, or everyone can be taking relentless imperfect action. But I suppose that's the best way to change your perception on yourself, is to take votes on the person that you actually want to be, and essentially one day you'll have so many votes on that thing that you'll just have convinced yourself that is who you are. It's a very interesting topic because you can literally change your perception about anything.
And it's okay to do that as long as like you are grounded in your own values and beliefs, and you are trying to do something that you, I guess, agree with as such. Like, because that's the whole idea, really. Like we spoke about this whole podcast, like perception could have been created, your perception, not you, but someone else, their perception could have been created by someone else. And then they perceive their own perception as that true fact that someone has said about them. So their dad may have said something about, you need to follow after me, you need to run the business as such. So that's the perception that they're going to follow after in their dad's footsteps. But that may not align with you. So if it doesn't align with you, then don't do it.
Here we are getting meta on the Meta Minds podcast. Absolutely,
and just being true to yourself, literally.
And a lot of this does come from, your childhood, because it's like you're so naive in this child that has such little information on the world that every piece of information can affect you so drastically. And a lot of, this is where trauma is born as well, because trauma doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic. It can just be a very small thing, like, a parent saying one thing to you and it's someone else's mum or something, and then that just scars you for your whole entire life, right. You know what I mean? But in the same sense, it can shape your perception in your whole entire life. Everyone else's mother is, not to be talked to or something like that, whatever the perception may be. That a lot of these perceptions, we have to really nitpick and go dive deep into the weeds, is like, we have to realize that a lot of these perceptions become like this grounded thing that's super hard to actually break from some tiny little thing that happened in our childhood.
Definitely.
So it's obviously, it's not for the average person to just dive deep into their psychology of like, no, where did this perception come from? Because it's very hard to do that.
Yeah. And it could be scarring as well.
Yeah, well, yeah.
If it is very deep.
It is very hard. Go and see a professional.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So
Yeah,
like, it's not something to just suddenly sit in your room and meditate for hours on end and figure out exactly who you are.
And it will be an ongoing battle, as we've said.
Absolutely.
You and I are still going through it. Yeah. I don't think we'll ever...
Well, and because perceptions change.
Perceptions change, right? That's it. The world changes, things around us change.
And then you finally go, well, why was that last perception that way? And it's because of this other thing that happened. But it's like, it's so funny how all these tiny little things can shape our perception. And this is what we were talking about in that even if you grew up in the same household as me, you know, like myself and my brother, for example, we've had entirely different, that's a perfect example, actually. I'm on this path and he's on this path. When we started, we were pretty similar, but because we've still had other random experiences that have shaped our perception into the person that we are, then we are our own total entity and we can learn so much from each other and go to dive deep into our own perception of ourselves. We could just go on forever, really.
We could. I think
the main point, is perception is reality, and you have the power to change it. It's super exciting, really.
It really is. It is
because you can do anything. Don't jump off a building, like I was saying.
No,
at the start,
do not. We do not recommend that. No,
but it's almost to that point. Placebo. We didn't even touch on.
We didn't even touch on the placebo effect. No, but we touched on some good things.
That's the perfect example, though. Placebo is like the placebo effect is clearly real in pretty much every double-blind study where it's like they give someone a pill that does that they say does one thing, and they give a trial group a pill that they say does one thing, and the placebo effect actually works.
That's
you know,
and
so you just have to placebo yourself into doing whatever you want.
It shows the power of the mind, literally.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I think we haven't even tapped into the power of how much it is. Maybe in 20 years, 50 years, we'll realize just how powerful
maybe. But it could also be something that's never solved, and that's also a great thing as well. But I think, like you said, to wrap it out with some actionable things for people, maybe just those small steps. So try to just be authentic in every interaction if you can, obviously. Try. I think also try to see where people are coming from. Try to understand that they have a perception, you have a perception. You're both living in completely different worlds, experiencing completely different things. So, give the conversation space for them to explain what's going on, but don't let it control your own perception. No. We're all living different lives. We're all doing different things.
And have compassion and respect for other people because they're coming from an entirely different perception. Yeah. And you can learn from that. So have gratitude for that, So
I think that's a nice way to end.
That's just how we kind of try and live our lives. And if anyone else can learn from that, that's wonderful. If you guys have any experience about perception and reality and how you've changed it, please let us know in any kind of comment form. We're super interested to know about your experience. If you have any questions about any particular life experiences, please drop those in the comments as well. We're going to start a Q&A and we're going to start answering some of these questions, and we're excited to hear from you guys. So thank you very much for listening to episode 3. My name's Eamon.
My name is Dan.
And we'll see you on the next MetaMinds podcast.
Goodbye.